Hello, my name is Carrie Andre, and this is my creative portfolio. I decided to look at my portfolio from the idea that I'm a very physically active person in the theater, and a lot of my performances require me to be able to dance or do different flexibility related things. Yeah, so my table of contents, I have my hand sewing sampler, my machine sewing sampler, a bow tie, the distressing project, and the haircraft project. Starting off with my hand sewing sampler, I joined the class late, so this was a little rough for me. I didn't have as much time to really just work on the stitches, but I was able to learn how to sew on different types of fasteners, like the dress clips, the skirt clips, and the buttons. Um, I also learned how to do an invisible hemming stitch as well as a straight stitch and a back stitch. I then next completed a machine sewing sampler where I genuinely think the most thing that I took from this was pinning, and I learned how to pin on a line and make sure things are truly lined up. We did a straight stitch on a sewing machine, a diagonal stitch, and I was able to pivot on the machine. Next is the bow tie. And this was the first project that we had to cut on a bias. And I really struggled with that originally because it just would not work for me. My fabric wouldn't line up. And I was cutting based off my fabric samples, not based off the pattern. So I did have to recut a few pieces. I also did mess up when I was hand sewing the final piece together. I I sewed it wrong, and so I had to take that out and restitch it using the invisible stitch that I learned on my hand sewing sampler. But I included that because I felt like it was a very big learning curve for me. You can see the before and after, and then there's my completed bow tie. Um, I also learned how to iron it correctly because I was ironing incorrectly. Next was the distressing project. I was given the prompt, you're a refugee hiding in a mechanic's car garage from the zombie apocalypse. And I took this and I decided to do a lot of research about zombies and figure out what the common lore is with it, and I really enjoyed the European idea of using salt to get away, and it makes the zombies souls depart from their body instead of the American belief that when you chop their head off they die. And I also did a lot more research that a lot of the more common beliefs is that bleach works better in these mythological worlds. So I decided to bleach my shirt. And then also, I wanted to add a Christian aspect because if there's a zombie apocalypse going on, I know I would be turning towards God. So I used the sleeves to create this patch, which would help the humans know where other humans were because they had God on them, and the zombies wouldn't be able to tell. I then used a stapler to staple the patch on because I think they would have had very limited resources when it comes to sewing the patch. So they may have had just enough thread to sew it, and then they're in a mechanic's garage, so they would have very few office supplies like a stapler. And so I decided to add that, and then I used an eyeshadow palette to add more of dirt and kind of griminess to my actual t-shirt. And then I sprayed it with hairspray and ended up washing it to make sure that none of the eyeshadow would come out. And so that is my final project, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. Then we did the craft project where we were given the task to make an accessory piece for Hair the Musical. I took a lot of time researching and really fell in love with the shapes of the 70s. And I chose to do a circular bag that uses jean material because we also had to use recycled material. And so I used an old pair of jeans and created this circular bag. I also loved crocheting with old yarn, so I crocheted a bunch of flowers to add this hippie vibe to it. Then I hand sewed on buttons for the straps because I thought it would give it a special little edge to it that would be really enjoyable. And I was able to create a baggie. And you can see in the right hand side my final product where I decided to add little stones in the center of the flowers to give it just an elevated look. And that is my final project. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so very much.